So today we're going to be learning about A Journal of a Plague Year, written by Daniel Defoe. So it was written in 1722, and it shares the story of a man's experience during the Great Plague in London, England. The Great Plague took place in 1665 in London, England, took over 97,000 lives. Defoe was only 5 years old at the time and fled with his parents quite early in the crisis. Defoe claims to have recalled upon his memory in order to write this book. Daniel Defoe was considered a man who made many enemies. He ran into the law quite often, creating many conflicts between himself and society. He was a dissenter. He did not conform to society's view on religion, was arrested for seditious libel, imprisoned for bankruptcy, sued for debt, joined the Mammoth Rebellion, and was a spy. Crazy. But he was an incredibly fascinating and complicated writer. Defoe's work is very unique as he does not write his plots linearly. Rather, his storyline follows a wandering pattern where he'll be making sense 100%, and 2 words later, your focus is being directed to something completely different, and then you're 100% lost, and then you're 100% sure that you've already read what you just read 10 pages later. A Journal of a Plague Year is told from the point of view of an unknown character who we found out last minute refers to himself as HF. So this mystery dude, HF, starts off his story lightheartedly by telling us the death count of the plague so far. He then tells us about his accounts while in London. He dabbles with the thought of leaving to escape the plague, because I'm sure he heard that plagues are not really that fun to stick around for, but he decides that God wanted him to stay. People are locked in their houses, others try to escape, crazy men are running through the streets, people are throwing themselves into burial pits, everyone is grieving. HF then wishes he didn't stay and comes to the conclusion that the plague was a product from God. However, HF insists it's not all chaos. He shares many stories of morale, charity, and mercy, stating, "Many consciences were awakened, many hard hearts melted into tears, many a penitent confession was made of crimes long concealed." He wraps up his ever so uplifting story, informing the reader on final mortality rates, and then a rather interesting self-reflection. HF realizes how crazy it actually was that he survived the plague, and gets it into his head that he's somehow privileged for doing so, as he signs off saying, "A dreadful plague in London was, in the year 65, which swept 100,000 souls away, yet I alive." Seems a little confident to me, if you ask. About 1/4 of London's population did not survive this plague, which does indeed make HF very fortunate considering he decided to stay. Defoe personifies London in this book, referring to it as a machine and as a body, stating, "The face of London was now indeed strangely altered, and London might well be said to be all in tears." Defoe uses this type of language to send a more powerful message across to the reader. By using this metaphor, Defoe allows the readers to become more closely attached to London in the sense that they have something better to relate to, as London being a living, breathing thing rather than a crazy, polluted, tea-drinking city. If we look at London as a living being, then the question has to be asked, what did the people do on the inside to corrupt and disease London to the point where the plague was necessary to purify itself? It can go along with the idea that God imposed the plague on the people as a punishment and to cleanse them of their sins. Must have been an incredibly corrupted society being that the case. The shift between London being a machine and then it being seen as a body can also show a shift in a more emotional way. The reader gets to see the breakdown in the machine and how constructed everyone in that society was, and the shift to a body shows a more soft and emotional side. The careless people broke the machine and continued then to tear apart the living being of London. The inner body of London, the plague, corruption, etc., is also used as a metaphor expressing the corruption in society that people need to change, and unfortunately in this story it took a plague to do so. However, HF observes that this change did not last long and people continued to intoxicate London's body even after experiencing the plague. So maybe serve this as a lesson. We are not perfect people, we make mistakes and we sin. But maybe don't get to the point where your body becomes another London. Keep the corruption to a minimum. Thanks for watching.